10 p.m. till midnight. The program, as I've previously mentioned, will be officially launching on the 1st of next month, the 1st of the new year. And I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be, I've got guests, I'm lining up guests. Let me just check my YouTube and see if I'm live, because I'm really supposed to be and shall be live at several stations simultaneously. Here we go. Yes, I am live. There we go. Let me shut off the sound. And you're welcome to join me. You're welcome to comment. Commentary is welcome. Come on down. What is on your mind? The program is also not only live in terms of chat, but I also can take phone calls, and which I think is unusual for an online program. Let me just give out the phone number. If I had it in front of me, that would be great. And the phone number is 617-396-4958. 617-396-4958. As I launch this thing, I'm going to be doing this Monday through Friday, and am doing it 10 till midnight, or maybe 10 till 11, depending on my guest and on response. And as I mentioned, I'm looking forward to it. Coming through. Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm already starting to get comments on YouTube. You're welcome to join the program. So what is going on? I want to, before I get into a couple of news issues, I want to again mention that there is a major grassroots development that is afoot. It is taking the country actually by storm. One of the major advocates for this is Stephen K. Bannon, who of course hosts the War Room Pandemic, which can still be heard at Apple Podcasts, which is excellent. I listen to it every day. And he is having people on who are talking about this phenomena of regular folk like myself and like anyone listening, citizens, concerned American citizens. And I might even say, not necessarily MAGA people, although I am, and I encourage MAGA people, but more likely people, MAGA people, followers, part of the movement that President Trump led and still leads, and that is taking on a force to be reckoned with in this country. And what they're doing is they are signing up at their local city and town committees, their local Republican city and town committees, to get positions of influence in those committees. They are applying to work as election workers, to man the polls. When you go to the election, there are always people, often retired people, who are manning the tables and who are instructing. People all over the country are signing up for those positions. They're signing up to get involved in the counting room, where the absentee ballots show up. Traditionally, you're supposed to have both a Democrat and a Republican present to inspect the ballots. There has been a shrinkage of Republicans involved. If there's one thing that I actually would fault the Trump campaign for in this last time, not that they didn't have enough on their plate, but they could have done a better job of trying to encourage this movement, getting people involved, rather than simply complaining about the real problem of voter fraud and the real possibility that there would be fraud. And again, I'm not saying that there was or wasn't. Let's not forget, this is YouTube and I can be censored. I'm simply saying that moving forward, and at that time, the best way to stop fraud, the best way to reduce it, is to volunteer with your local precinct and be there on election day and on the following days not only to man the election locations, but to be in the counting room when they count the absentee ballots, to be an observer, to run for local clerk, to run for local election official. There are election offices that oftentimes these offices are open, or you have someone who's in there who's been there for 20 years, who's never been challenged. These are pretty good jobs. You could run for these offices and find yourself running unopposed, or find yourself going in and simply saying that you are the election integrity candidate and you want to ensure that every single legitimate, registered, real vote is counted and every illegitimate vote is not counted, because if you have an illegitimate vote, then that's voter suppression. You want to end voter suppression. We should run on that platform, ending voter suppression by ending fake votes. And by doing so, we can really reduce and actually largely eliminate voter fraud in our states and in our communities. Now, this last special election in Virginia saw a victory for Glenn Youngkin and for a Republican lieutenant governor and a Republican attorney general, and for a Republican House of Burgesses. And this was going against the same rotten Democrat machine headed up by corrupt former governor Terry McAuliffe, and that was expected to win handily, because they understand how to make that happen. We'll put it that way. Now, there were some very interesting issues that developed during that campaign. One of them was parents going to school board meetings and complaining about things like critical race theory and sex education that was pornographic and actually illegal, and that this got a lot of play. And we found out that the Attorney General was considering having the FBI count these people as, quote, domestic terrorists, which outraged a lot of parents. And then, of course, you had a situation where this young woman was raped, and the father came to the school board meeting to point out that the school board had covered this up because the guy that had raped his daughter was wearing a skirt and he was in the girls' room. And so they said, oh, this is for transgendered. And so they covered it up, and he became angry and he was arrested, when in fact, the entire school board should have resigned. They should have been, if anyone, arrested them. But putting aside the issues at hand, the fact is that the Republican Glenn Youngkin and the lieutenant governor candidate and the attorney general candidate, by the way, the lieutenant governor, not just for the record, happens to be the first African-American woman elected in a southern state, and the attorney general is Hispanic. So it had nothing to do with race, of course. But putting that aside, the fact that they won was because the Republican National Committee and the Youngkin campaign launched a significant effort to get people out in the field. So where they would, check the vote, where they would man the voting booths, every little precinct. We're talking thousands of people, where they would be in the counting room when the absentee ballots were looked at and examined, and they would make sure that any illegitimate one was not counted, and the legitimate ones were counted. And they had a staff of attorneys who are election experts on call at a hotline, ready to act instantly if they received any reports from the field of fraudulent activity. This is why Youngkin won, and this is going to be replicated in every state in the union for the midterm next year, next November. Now, I don't trust the Republican Party. I don't trust the Republican National Committee. I don't trust the Republican senatorial committee or the Republican Congressional Committee, because I think that they're part of the problem. They're establishment people. They're not creative. They haven't done enough outreach, frankly, to minorities, which they should be doing. That should be the first priority. And they haven't really done much. They're kind of inside the beltway, fat cat Republicans, and all they care about is raising money from big donors. But that doesn't mean that we, as people who support the MAGA movement, people who support an honest election and who support genuine conservative values, even joined by independents and maybe even liberals who also care about honest elections in this country, we can get involved. We can take over the party by doing it locally. You know, your city and town has most likely a Republican city committee or a Republican town committee. It's usually made up of local Republican hacks. You can go there and take over those committees. If you don't have one in your city or town, you can form one, and you can begin to coordinate. These are to foster candidates, interview candidates, help candidates raise money locally, help candidates develop a local infrastructure where they can go out and organize for voting. They can knock on doors, hold signs, make phone calls, have coffees, set up events, do all the things that you do to help candidates. But most importantly, you can man the voting booths on election day. This is the important thing. This is key. During the last election of 2020, there were very few people doing this. That's why President Trump had the vote taken away from him. I don't say he lost, because I'm not going to go there, but let's just say that every vote wasn't inspected. And when you had hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of unsolicited absentee ballots pouring in at various times of the day and of various times in the following week in certain states, you didn't have local Republicans there checking. You didn't have enough of them anyway. And the ones that were there were attacked and mocked and ridiculed and driven out. So you need to get massive numbers involved. This is happening thanks to people like Steve Bannon, who have encouraged this on his huge program. So this is the grassroots movement that we are now embroiled in. This is the civil rights movement of our time, getting back our vote by getting involved. And you can do it if you live in your local community, if you're a teenager, if you're a housewife, if you're an unemployed man, if you're retired, if you're a empty nester, if you have you're a college student, a high school student of voting age, if you have some time, a little time on your hands that you want to do something that is real, something that's meaningful, something that actually can change the course of history in your local community and as such in your state and in your country. If you want to do something to make things right, to make things honest, to make things godly in this country, to bring God to mankind by speaking truths, by standing up for our honored electoral system, the greatest system in history, and making sure that it remains with integrity and that it doesn't go astray like I believe it did in 2020. I think the evidence of that's overwhelming. If you don't want that to happen again, then you can do this. You can get involved in your local community. My contribution, everyone has something they can contribute. My contribution is to do the show. That's what I do. That's how I pitch in and write my books. Your contribution can be to physically get involved by standing up and going to your local school board, your local election officials, and getting involved in running for those offices. And you'll be amazed at those opportunities. They are there, ripe for the picking. Go down and check it out. Just do a little research on your local community, and you'll find out how much you can do. So that's my main message for tonight. I'm not going to really stay on much longer. There are interesting developments in the area of investigating the last election. I'm not going to get into that in this broadcast, other than to just speak very generally and point out a couple of developments that are in the news. One of them is that in Georgia with Fulton County, and there is something like 298,000 absentee ballots that are questionable in that county in terms of where they came from. You now have David Perdue, former US Senator, running for governor as a Republican, a member of a Georgia legacy family, a big Georgia figure going way back, coming out and saying that had he been governor, he would not have certified the election, and he is joining a lawsuit to open up an investigation into these 280,000 ballots. Now, this is significant because he is a significant name. He's not just some schlemiel, This is somebody who has some political clout in that state. And the fact that he's now stepping up tells me that there's going to be some interesting action going on in Georgia. And furthermore, it tells me that David Perdue, who is a moderate Republican, who did not say anything during the last election when he should have, in my opinion, and, who's kind of a typical, not rhino, but he's sort of a mugwump, will fly either way. The fact that he's getting involved in this tells me that, and he's not stupid, tells me that something is going on with Republicans in terms of they're testing the waters, and they're holding their finger up like a windmill to see which way the wind is blowing. And they can see that the Republican base, and more than the Republican base, believes that there needs to be election integrity. They don't trust the last election. 60% of people don't trust it, according to even a very recent poll, and that they support President Trump. So he is responding to that. That's why he's saying this. That's why here in my own state of Massachusetts, we have Jeff Deal running for governor. And he has openly and proudly and unabashedly touted the fact that he has been endorsed by former President Trump in Massachusetts, no less. And that our present governor, who is anti-Trump and who's a phony, that being Charlie Baker, he's not running for re-election after having a huge war chest and after being told over the year how by the Boston Globe, and oh, he's so great, and he's the most popular governor in the world, and he's so brilliant. I remember they used to do this for Dukakis too, Oh, brilliant, 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 right? Well, apparently, according to a recent poll, 50% of Republicans are supporting Deal, and only 25% are reporting Baker in a primary. And then when you add Trump into the mix, that number goes up to 57 for Deal and only 20 for Baker, something like that. So Massachusetts, the Republicans are not going, they want election integrity. And, a guy like Baker has no place. And they're all scratching their head. Well, what are we going to do? Can we get a real, a quote unquote, real Republican? The Globe is asking, right? And the other liberals, what can we do? We don't want to have them disappear. And Jeff Deal, by the way, is no right winger either. He's not really a MAGA person. He's more of a moderate right of center Republican. He's kind of like David Perdue. So these are bellwethers. This is an interesting development this early in the campaign. It tells me that Republicans can sense where the electorate is, and not only Republicans either. independents, and even some disgruntled Democrats. So my message is simply this: get involved in your local election politics. Join, your local party, your city and town committee. Find out about opportunities with clerks and with local elected election boards. Volunteer for, election booths and counting rooms. This is the way to take back your community and your country. And this is the way to right the ship of state. All right. So on that note, I want to thank you for watching, everyone. God bless you all. My program is self-sponsored by my books. My books are available at Amazon Books. Just put my name in the server, Charles Moscowitz. That's Moscow with a Witz. My grandfather's name means the son of Moses. My latest book is Sociology for Conservatives. My book just before that, I happen to have a copy here, so I'll hold it up. The Satanic Conspiracy, The Spectre Haunting Mankind. Check that out. And the program, once again, will be Monday through Friday, 10 p.m. to midnight. I should have a website up over the weekend showing the 30-odd locations where the program can either be heard live streamed, or it could be heard as a podcast or as an archive. And I'll be announcing that once that's up officially. And please subscribe to me on YouTube. I'd appreciate it. Charles Moscowitz here. Thank you very much. God bless you all.